Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. My fellow presenters, Dr. Faisal, Brother Patrick, Sister Balkis, and all friends, please allow me to spend around 7 to 10 minutes to share my short paper on an overview of Islam in the Malay world, which focus on intellectual and educational response to colonization. I will not go into details, but this is my brief outline. Dr. Faisal will talk about strategic geopolitical location. We'll talk a bit about Hindu-Buddhist tradition, and then the coming of Islam, and then we talk a bit about the Muslim kingdom and sultanate, and then there's a major part on colonization and Western imperialism, and then we talk about the four figures, and then a brief discussion and conclusion. I do not plan to go through all the slides. This slide is more on a note actually, but I will speak freely so that we can get an idea. See, okay, this one is better. All the slides. Okay. As we all know, my motivation. Let's begin. My motivation in writing this paper is that I always thinking. I always feel that the young scholars now lack of motivation. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we do not have the icon or somebody that we can follow as an example, who we can feel that we are together as a continuum of a struggle. So I'm looking for figures. There are so many figures in our history in this region, scholars, politicians that we can emulate. So for this paper, I choose four figures, which are Muhammad Yusuf al-Makassari, Sheikh Muhammad Tahil Jalaluddin, Kiai Ahmad Dahlan, and Syed Muhammad Najib Latas. But before we go talking about these figures, let us look briefly our location here, our situation in this region. As being discussed by previous speaker, Southeast Asia is located strategically in the middle of Chinese and India route, where traders are moving around back and forth to look for material, to look for laborers. So that's one factor, and we have seen that through history, there are many civilizations in our region before. We see the age of Funan, the age of Sriwijaya, the Temple Realm in the Central Java and East Java, Singasari, and then the Maritime Realm in think about the Malacca. So we have seen all the activities in the past 2,000 years or 3,000 years in this region. And we cannot deny that there are still the influence of Sanskrit, Tamil in our culture. We can see in our language, in Bahasa specifically, there are words that can be understood in Sanskrit, can be understood in Tamil, like the word of Anugrah, Bahasa, Bendahara, and all these words. And this person, Ramayani Mohana Das Ramasamy, has has carefully surveyed and studied, there are 186 Malay words borrowed from Sanskrit and Tamil. So it is to prove that Tamil, the Buddhist and Hindu influence are there in our society, in our culture. And before, I still remember in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, in our wedding, or when we call the bomo for medication, they all of this mantra. And all this mantra is originally from the Hindu Buddhist tradition. So we can see that clearly, that element. So now let us go briefly the coming of Islam to this region, as Brother Faisal has mentioned. But we only mention here Al-Attah's view. He strongly believed that regardless of economic factor, traveling of disability or whatever factor, but he said that the main factor that make Islam so strong in this region is due to the Sufi influence. They call it Sufi metaphysics. Latas used this argument. He quoted this Henry Pirenne, one of the sociologists. He said, in order for a civilization to move from one era to another era, it has to be a very, very strong factor so that can change the whole civilization. So that he believed that this factor is Tawhidic factor that can change the mindset, that can change the culture. And Allah says that the reason why Islam so entrenched in this region is due to this Sufi influence, where it has able to change our way of thinking. So now we see that when the rise of Islam, there's a map here prepared by Federspiel. This is the earlier Muslim kingdom. We can see there Malacca, Brunei, Ternate. And then there's another map, the later kingdom, where we can see Aceh, Sumatra, Sulawesi. There's Banten, Mataram, Makassar, Suru, and Maguindanao. This is in Philippines. We have a very strong sultanate before. Now we come to this very sad period in our Muslim world, which is colonization. This author said there are 5 factors, but throughout our reading, the main factor of this colonization is the growth of industrialization in Europe, where they need raw material, so in demand of spices and other material to help them develop in Europe. That's why they go all over the world to find this raw material and bring it back to Europe. I think that's the main reason. And then, as we all know, in this region, there's the French controlling Vietnam and Cambodia. The Spaniard and American controlling Philippines, and the British Malaysia and the East Malaysia, and the Dutch, of course, Indonesia, and Portuguese, small world in part of Papua. These are the colonial era. Now we come to the main discussion: how our Muslim figures, our intellectuals, responds to this onslaught of these intruders. I can call this intruders. So there are many figures, there are many personalities that we can quote, we can emulate. But let me take only 4 figures. One of them is Muhammad Yusuf al-Maktari. Why this ulama is so special? Because he is known as a Sufi, a Tasawwuf leader, is a Tariqah. But by his association with Sultan Ageng, which is because he's married with one of the daughters of the Sultan was against the Dutch. Unfortunately, the Sultan was captured by the Dutch, and then Yusuf al-Makassari has to take responsibility to lead the army of 4,000 men against the Dutch. Unfortunately, he was tricked and he was caught and expelled to Sri Lanka, and then he was expelled to South Africa. So, beside his struggle against the Dutch, this Sheikh Yusuf is known in his tasawwuf, in his tariqah. He also promoting what they call it a neo-Sufis, where the Sufis not only confine themselves in their prayer room, but they also involve in the society. Okay, our next figure is Sheikh Muhammad Tahil Jalaluddin Al-Falaki. Al-Falaki referred to his expertise in Muslim calendar. What's so special with this Sheikh Tahir is two reasons. First, he is among the early scholars who are directly associated with Abdul and Rashid Reza. While he was in Azhar, for sure he met with these two leaders, and he is responsible to bring their ideas back to Makkah and back to our region, to Malaysia. So important also to mention that Sheikh Tahir also is a cousin of Sheikh Muhammad Khatib, where these two personalities, the scholars in Masjidil Haram, and all the students from Indonesia, from Malaysia in those days went to Makkah and studied with him. So let's go to another important figure, Kiai Ahmad Dahlan. Kiai Ahmad Dahlan is so significant, although our Sheikh is not publishing monumental work, but his work in the field of education, in his work of building a community, and his association as Muhammadiyah that he left behind is so powerful and has become an example organization in the Muslim world. And the last figure that I will mention is Said Najib Alatas. We are so blessed that in our life now, we still can communicate with this person. He is special in many ways. His original thinking, his intellectual vigor, and he is so equipped with both modern tradition and also his understanding on the local need. So there are so many writings on Najib Alatas that we can read, that we can study. For the time's sake, we don't have to discuss it in detail. Let us go to my final part of my paper on the discussion. The brief paper is dedicated to young scholars and educators who are passionate about Islam and integration of knowledge in the Malaysian context. I can say in the Malay context. We have tried to locate the discourse on Islamization from historical and participatory perspective. Due to its strategic geographic location and richness in the agricultural resources, Southeast Asia region has been a main attraction for traders and education. So let's go to the next one. Colonization with its imperialism project have disrupted the growth of Islam in the Muslim world. The once respected Islamic Sultanate of Malacca fell into the hand of Portuguese forces, then followed by the savage of the Dutch, and then by the British aristocrat. Muslim scholars were not silent and passive in confronting these intruders. As we have shown in our discussion, Yusuf al-Makassari, who was a Sufi master in his own right, was engaged in a bitter war with the Dutch. He continued his fight even while he was expelled in Sri Lanka and South Africa. Sheikh Tahil Jalaluddin is considered a doyen and propagator of modern Islamic revivalist movement in Southeast Asia region. Together with Sheikh Ahmad Khatib, he taught a group of young and vibrant Muslim students in Makkah, who then became leaders of their own community in Southeast Asia. So through publication of Al-Imam and his many publications, Sheikh Tahir promoted the idea of progress and importance of education in the Muslim community. And Ahmad Dahlan is another exemplary figure which should be a reference point for all observers of Islamic revivalist movement and Islamic educational practitioners. Ahmad Dahlan provides two important narratives. First is Islamic teaching can be peacefully implemented without confrontation with the establishment of the day. And secondly, Islamic teaching is an active involvement started in one's own community. So, and then finally, on Al-Atas not only correcting misleading historical fact of Islam from the West, but also promoting a true version of Islamic teaching based on Tawhid and comprehensive Islamic worldview. And finally, what I want to convey in this short paper is that combination of these scholars' strength and idealism are the necessary ingredient and motivation for the passionate young scholars and educators. Young Yusuf al-Makassari, valor and piety, his struggle is jihad spirit. Tahir Jalaluddin, revivalist spirit. Ahmad Dahlan, activism, and Najib al-Atas, academic prowess, will be a perfect combination to emulate. They have left behind example par excellence for future generation on how to face contemporary challenges in their own time and space. We hope to see many more scholars to raise to the challenge and continue the legacy left behind by these prominent figures. So these are few figures. There are many more that we always talk about. Hamka, we always talk about other prominent figures in Asia. But the most important is the spirit, the legacy they left behind. So hopefully for the new upcoming scholars, they can emulate this spirit. And one common denominator among all of these figures is, of course, the ummatic spirit. They always think about the ummah and how they can play their role to help the ummah to be freed from all kind of trial and tribulation. So I think that's all for my papers. I hope.